Is anyone else losing their mind during this pandemic? With all this confinement, restrictions, and mental anguish, it's easy to let your mind wander. But does it go to a good place? Where will I go on holiday next? Or does it go to a darker place of, I'm not sure I can take all this as it just seems to be getting worse? Being honest, I've battled between the two. Initially, I thought it was all a bit of a storm in a teacup when I visited British Columbia and Vancouver, but not taking the virus seriously enough very much made me realise that was actually the wrong chain of thought. Over the last 12 months, it's proven that the severity of the pandemic, and I have done all I can to limit the spread. Read, stay at home when required, wear a mask, and fundamentally wash my hands 95 times a day. It has made me wonder though, how do we cope with the worry, the fear and the uncertainty bombarding us on a daily basis? Some of us will find it easier than others, being able to compartmentalise the situation and focusing on the next task at hand. But meanwhile, there are those who are less proficient at this or of a different disposition, can find it quite a battle. Possibly it could be a bit of a slippery slope into the world of endless rabbit warrens of thought, none of which end in daylight. Now, I'm fortunate in that I can compartmentalise situations and have so been able to deal with the current situation. This is a combination of being frustratingly logical, if you ask my other half, pragmatic and not fluctuating too much, so either high highs or low lows. Add to this the experience of endurance sports events, and I'd like to think my mental strength is reasonably good. Building up physical endurance is remarkably easy. Yes, you practice the same thing near enough over and over again until you reach the level at which you want to perform. It may take time, but we're all capable of doing it, and to a much higher level than you realise. Now that is another video. Yes, it is more complex than that, but the essence is spot on. However, when was the last time you worked on your mental or emotional endurance? Now, I'm willing to guess that the answer is either a long time ago, if not never. Now, that is not a good thing. You see, in the last 12 months, I've been on a bit of a journey, the journey to better understand my mental state. This isn't the beginning of some holier-than-thou speech, but one in which I knew deep down I needed to undertake. You see, whilst taking on sporting challenges comes easy, the dealing with mental health issues most certainly doesn't. Now, the reason for telling you this is I firmly believe that we can all benefit from having therapy. The ability to talk to someone, a professional, who will listen and help you uncover the real issues, thoughts and concerns, is immensely valuable. I would have never thought I needed a therapist, but boy, was I wrong. You see, we all do. The problem here is in the UK, therapy has a stigma attached to it. Still. Whether it be counselling, therapy or psychology, the first thought that comes to mind is usually a negative one. It could invoke images of a padded room or a chaise longue or another movie-inspired picture, but either way, I'm sure you could picture an image associated with therapy and it won't be positive. But I'm here to tell you that you are wrong. Why? Well, a few years ago, my mother and brother were very, very ill, with a brain tumour and severe bowel cancer respectively, and I didn't handle it very well. I was very angry with the world. I couldn't come to terms with either, and I took it out on those around me. I'm not sure whether some realised the situation, but looking back, I was not easy to be around. I did the only thing I knew possible, and I threw myself into the gym, taking my frustration and anger out on weights, which quite simply couldn't talk back. I became snappy and agitated, even at the most minor thing. Quite simply, I had a lot going on in my head. Now, I'm not the most talkative about my feelings, even at the best of times, but here I retracted even further, ultimately closing off and shutting up shop, thereby not dealing with my mental and emotional anguish. Thankfully, both have fully recovered, which we count as small miracles, continuing to live full and rich lives now. But what should I do? It would have been easy to confine this experience to history and ignore it all going forwards, but I knew that wasn't right. So just under a year ago, I was talking to a close friend and we stumbled upon the topic of having therapy. It turned out he was an advocate of the practice, having used it to help him with his anxiety. Now, I'm open to learning about the body and mind, especially in personal development, so my interest was poked. Long story short, I was encouraged to look into having therapy as it could help with the feelings from my family's illnesses. Over the course of 6 months, I saw a therapist on a fortnightly basis, which we covered many aspects, starting with the anger over the illnesses. Was I worried about seeing a therapist? Absolutely. Did I worry about being able to talk to a stranger? Of course. Am I glad I did it? Definitely. It's important to say here that my therapist was excellent and comes highly recommended by me, but I'd also like to make a couple of other comments. Therapy doesn't have to be a downer. I laughed a lot in my sessions. The conversations are private between you and your therapist. You will need to commit to the process because if you do so, you will benefit from it, I have no doubt. And it will be easier than you think. Now, it's not something to be ashamed of, and that last point is something I want to really emphasize because it is really important. We all have preconceived ideas and notions as to what something will be like, and more often than not, they are wrong. But who cares? If the action of seeing someone helps you unlock a difficult issue, overcome a mental hurdle, or make peace in a situation, this can only be a good thing. The hardest part is starting. Being open to something new and deciding to try it is the greatest thing we can do. We're all guilty of putting off a task or an activity because we are scared of the outcome, and that simply is procrastination. But what if I told you that you will benefit from it? Does it help overcome the putting off? I would hope so. It certainly did me, and I would never have told you that I needed therapy. Thankfully, mental health has been raised in the public's consciousness over the last few years with the great work done by the Princes William and Harry, as well as Freddie Flintoff and other sportsmen and women. We can now talk openly about mental health. It's amazing to hear the number of people who have suffered and come out the other side. The stories are saddening and heartwarming in equal measure. Sad in that many had to suffer in silence, but pleasing in that they overcame the issues. Being able to talk about it now will just simply change the stigma. In North America, for example, having a therapist, a counselor, or psychologist is not uncommon. In North America, having therapy is actually positively encouraged when growing up because it helps us deal with the issues as they arise. Obviously, it needs to be conducted in a controlled environment, but this is great. So why am I telling you this? With all the enforced confinement over the last 12 months, and continues to be so in the UK at times, our mental health is being challenged. The physical aspects are easier to address because we can all do a daily HIIT session with the UK's PE teacher Joe Wicks, or follow online yoga with Janet Stone, or some good old-fashioned walking up and down the stairs. But what are you doing to strengthen your mental endurance? You may still think, I don't need therapy, and that's fine. Just put it in the locker and remember this video in the future if you ever change your mind. My mental health is important to me, and I will do everything I can to improve it and keep it in a positive state. This is why I started my therapy. But what did I learn? I learned that the feeling of hearing every single beat of my heart and not being able to turn it off is anxiety. This is brought about generally because I feel like my integrity is being questioned, and integrity as a value is now even more important to me than ever. The beating in my chest I have encountered for years, but never known what caused it or what to do about it. But through the process of going through therapy, I now know. That is anxiety manifesting itself in my heart. If only I knew that. But you know what, hindsight goggles are a wonderful thing, and as the Chinese proverb says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. The same could be said for therapy. The results will be specific to each person, but remember, if you don't start, you will never know. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say today. I said, mental health is hugely important to us, and therapy can be one of the best ways to help us unlock any troubles, and fundamentally speaking to somebody can only be a good thing. If you liked this video, please do check out this one here, where I talk about why social media is not always your best friend. But with that, have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.